Hi, if you're new here, my name is Joanna, and today I'm doing a different kind of video. I've never really done a discussion video on my channel before, but I'm feeling a little inspired today. I recently watched a video over on my friend Noah's channel. He proposed the question, what constitutes a perfect book? And he gave 5 book examples of books he considered to be perfect books. He explained in the video that his concept of a perfect book is not rigid, and he used these 5 books to explain that, showing how each of these 5 books is different from one another, but they are perfect in their own way. I started thinking a lot about this idea of a perfect book, and maybe I'm just making this video for myself, just to ponder, what am I looking for? There are a few things that come to mind for this. One is just to evoke a sense of wonder and imagination in me, curiosity, like I want to keep turning the page to find out what's to come. I've kind of described this experience when reading Tolkien, and Tolkien definitely inspires that in me. But another one is to feel like everything has a sense of purpose. And another one is to feel like as soon as I finish the book, like I want to go back and start out the book all over again. I had that experience actually with Gardens of the Moon. As soon as I finished it, I wanted to go back to the beginning and start it all over again. And another thing is that I want to feel moved by the themes. I want to feel as though the book resonates with me now, but that if I picked up the book 10 years from now, it would still resonate with me, maybe for different reasons, but still have that feeling that inspires me to want to learn or know more, or to be a better person in the world somehow, or to show up more. I also want to feel as though I am not interested in reading any other book when I'm reading that book. I'm so present with the reading experience that nothing else even enters my mind as far as, I want to read this book, I want to get through this book so I can get to the next book. I have to admit, I have a little bit of that mentality. Like even when I eat, sometimes I'm eating my food and I'm enjoying the taste, but I can't wait to get to the next bite to enjoy that taste. And I think having a sense of anticipation is an important thing when having a flow experience, but at the same time, it can interfere with being present and really truly savoring the experience. So there's a balance there. All of these things that I am demanding from a book, do these come from the book or do these come from the reader? And how much responsibility is it that the author is evoking that experience, and how much of it comes down to the reader putting their effort, their presence, their energy into evoking that experience? And I think it's a blend between the two. I know that this is a little bit of a hot topic because I know that there are certain people who will read a book and feel like they are putting in a lot of effort and time and energy into the book and still not feeling a connection with it, only to be told by other people, well, you just don't get it. And you're wrong for feeling that way. And I would never say that to you if you've ever had that experience with any book. At the same time, I still think it's important to bring your presence and your best to reading a book. I have a little bit of a story behind this, and this relates to music. When I was a master's student, I took a class on the symphony, and in that class we had to learn all about the history of the symphony. We had to learn all about the instrumentation, the history of the forms, the different composers obviously through the years, and obviously all these different symphonies throughout history. We had so many difficult listening tests in that class, but there was one particular symphony I couldn't get into. No matter how much I listened to it, it just didn't stick with me. And that symphony was Beethoven's Sixth Symphony, the Pastoral, one of the most famous symphonies of all time. I listened to that symphony so many times, and for some reason I just couldn't connect with it. I just couldn't. I started to make the conclusion that this symphony just isn't for me. It's just not my personal taste. It's just not my personal preference. Maybe there are other symphonies that just connect with me more, but not that one. I almost gave up on it. Problem was, I was often listening to that symphony while driving, while doing other tasks, which is how I would get so much listening done. I was listening to symphonies as much as I'm trying to read books nowadays. So quite a bit. But I wasn't really putting my full presence and effort into listening to that symphony. One morning, I decided to listen to that symphony while I was on a run. I know that's still kind of multitasking, but at the same time, I made it my mission that I was going to be present with that symphony, that I wasn't going to let my thoughts wander, and if they did, I'd bring them back. So, very much like a meditation. When I did that, I can't explain it. Magic. It was magic. I only listened to that symphony one time with my full presence, and I fell in love with that symphony in a way that I have never fallen in love with a work of art. I felt as though I was flying. Like, I know that sounds crazy, but I just felt like something in me was soaring. Something in me was so moved, I was inspired. Inspiration, by the way, that word comes from the word inspirata, which means in breath. My heart just opened up. And this was a symphony I'd listened to over and over again, and I just didn't get it, and I was going to conclude it just wasn't for me. But it totally shifted everything. Now, context. This goes into another area, a whole other area of discussion. I do think context can make a big difference. Now, obviously, bringing my presence to that symphony made a big difference. I didn't really look into the details of the history before that inspiration happened, but I did learn a lot of things about the history of the symphony and the instrumentation and what Beethoven was doing and how it was so radically different than what had been done before. So context definitely makes a big difference, and it definitely enriched the experience, but not as much as being fully present and open to it. No, I can't promise that's going to be a guaranteed experience for any work of art or any book, but I do think that a certain amount of ourselves and our time and attention and presence is required for having this magical experience we're hoping to have with the book. Hi, this is me a couple of weeks later after filming the video, and after looking back at what I said, I still stand behind what I said for the most part, but I want to add that there are all types of different aesthetic experiences that one can have when reading a book, and that some can happen spontaneously, some can happen without much effort at all, and I don't want to invalidate those experiences. This video, more than anything, is an exploration for me to see what exactly I'm looking for, and I think we're all maybe different, and maybe some of us are looking for different things. A horror book isn't going to offer the same aesthetic experience that a fantasy book is going to offer, or a nonfiction is not going to offer the same experience that a literary fiction book will offer. So again, there are so many different types of experiences and ways at arriving at those experiences. So I don't want to in any way suggest that being very mindful and meditative is the only way to have a powerful, positive experience of a book. I guess I'm just trying to explore how much the reader plays a role in that and what our part is. And maybe I say this for myself because I also don't want to limit what type of aesthetic experiences I have from a book or from any work of art. Again, I also want to refer everyone to watch Noah's video from Everyone Who Reads It Must Converse, because he gives a very good explanation of how this is not a rigid type of concept, the idea of a perfect book. I guess this is something that's just coming up in my thoughts as I'm reading and I'm taking away certain things from certain books. How much of that is the author? How much of that is the reader? And I feel like that's an important discussion to have, and why reading is so subjective, and why context matters. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. This is definitely a different type of video. I don't know that I'll do many of these type of videos on my channel, but I appreciate you taking the time to listen, and I'd love to hear from you. Thanks. Bye-bye.